In 1995, Claude and Elliot Aronson at Stanford examined racial identification and the intellectual performance of African Americans.
So when the English test was described as a test of intellectual ability, black students did much worse than white students, but not when this phrase was taken out. There is an increased accessibility of the black stereotype for the black students, and they are aware of themselves as being part of that stereotype, so therefore being less intelligent, and this causes a drop in their performance. This effect has become known as stereotype threat. This is because being primed with your identity as being part of a stereotyped group leads to a diminishment in your performance according to stereotype.
In 1999, Margaret Shih and colleagues at Harvard examined stereotype threat in a population for which two competing stereotypes about performance would be personally relevant. For Asian women, two different aspects of their identity can be made prominent regarding math ability. Women are thought to be bad at math, but Asians are stereotyped to be good at math. In this study, some participants indicated their sex, in this case female, and answered gender-related questions. Some participants answered ethnicity-related questions, Asian ethnicity in this case. Thus, their identity was primed as either woman or as Asian. After the priming, the participants in the experiment answered 12 math questions.
Those primed with Asian identity performed better than those primed with their identity as females. Just thinking of yourself differently due to subtle cues can impact your performance.
In 2006, Jennifer Eberhardt and colleagues at Stanford examined capital punishment and the effect of race on being sentenced to death. Overall, there is a well-known role of race in the likelihood that a defendant will receive a death sentence. Blacks are more likely than whites to receive a death sentence for comparable crimes. This study examined the more subtle effect of looking more or less stereotypically black, using lips, nose, hair texture, skin tone, on the likelihood of being sentenced to death. In cases involving a white victim, the more stereotypically black a defendant is perceived, the more likely he is to be sentenced to die. Basic cognitive processes underlying prejudice.
How do we come by these stereotypes? Are they innate or something that we learn through our culture? Experimental evidence shows it's a little bit of both. So how do we measure prejudice in this day and age where overt discrimination is discouraged? Can we be prejudiced ourselves without even being aware of it? We're trying to figure those things out.
Process of categorization, variable.
In 1967, Donald Campbell at Ohio State examined the process of stereotyping and the perception of group differences. Campbell theorized that stereotypes may arise from a grain of truth hypothesis, which suggests that aspects of a stereotype may well be true for some individuals, but for most people traits may be due to self-fulfilling prophecies and/or expectations. We expect people to act a certain way, so we remember only instances which conform to these expectations. People can also behave in ways in which society expects them to. They can conform to their expected roles.